Hey everyone, welcome. This is the Joe Cannon Health Podcast, and I am Joe Cannon, obviously. This is episode 38 of my podcast. If this is your first time joining me, welcome. Each week at this time, I'm going to talk about different topics devoted to exercise, health, wellness, nutrition, all without the hype, no spin, no testimonials, just the facts in plain English. This week is a bit of a topical issue that you may have been seeing if you've been scrolling up and down the social media world. I can't turn on social media these days without hearing some blog post or some video by some health professional who seems to be offering some hope of some cure to the craziness that we're going through these days. And yes, I'm talking about the virus, but I'm going to try to not say that word because, as I've said in previous episodes, I'm kind of tired of hearing that word. I can't turn on the news or, turn on, Facebook, Instagram without seeing it. And you're the same way, and I'm sure. And again, even podcasts have been jumping on this bandwagon. And I really didn't want to be one of those people who did a podcast on this topic. But, we're all kind of stuck inside. And, with the exception of maybe watching reruns of Murdoch Mysteries or Downton Abbey. Yes, I have been watching Downton Abbey lately, and I've been enjoying it too. What's wrong with me? But besides that, this is something that's been gripping the whole world, and you've probably heard of different cures out there for it. And recently I wrote a little bit about this, things that I've been seeing, and I wanted to basically bust some myths. And so if you've missed what I wrote, I'm going to talk about that here. And I also want to talk about a couple things that I haven't talked about in my original review of these so-called cures for the pandemic virus. There, I found another word for it. And I also want to talk about something that you may be hearing about in the very near future, actually a dietary supplement, which is actually being tested to see if it might help. But before we go into any of that, let me bust the myth of the week. And this myth is actually about another dietary supplement. It was quite popular, especially in the 1970s and 1980s, and it's vitamin E. And some of you may take vitamin E supplements. It's sometimes called alpha tocopherol. That's one of the vitamin E versions that are out there. There's actually 8 different types of vitamin E, but alpha tocopherol is what we see mostly in dietary supplements. Again, as I said, it was very popular many years ago, especially in the 1970s. Matter of fact, if you were to go back to maybe, some of the deep cable channels, maybe MeTV or Comet or something like that, you may see really old TV shows from the 70s where they'll even claim sometimes that vitamin E was a cure for everything under the sun. I remember even seeing rumors that it actually might be maybe a natural Viagra. They talked about that back in the 1970s. One of the things that vitamin E was thought to help prevent back then was heart disease and cancer. Back, maybe in the 1990s, they got around to looking at this and found that actually, let me take a step back. Previously, last week, I told you about the research on beta-carotene and how beta-carotene was studied to see if it might reduce heart disease and cancer as well. And back then, as I said in last week's episode, it didn't. Well, those very same studies also used vitamin E. They gave people beta-carotene or vitamin E supplements, again, compared to getting nothing at all to see what happened. Well, lo and behold, just like beta-carotene, vitamin E did not reduce cancer and did not reduce heart disease risk at all. So if you're taking vitamin E for those reasons, again, maybe you want to ask your doctor or pharmacist why, because the research doesn't appear to show that taking it as a supplement reduces cancer or heart disease. There's also been some other strange research with vitamin E that has popped up in the last 5 years or so. This research noted that in people who took 400 international units of vitamin E, that's a very common dosage, by the way, found in supplements, but if they took 400 international units of vitamin E, those individuals seemed to die at a greater rate than other people who did not take the supplement. So what does that mean? Well, it doesn't necessarily mean that vitamin E kills people. I want you to realize that. It just appears to show that there's some sort of an association between people who took vitamin E supplements and maybe not lasting so long. So that, I think, might be another reason why maybe you might want to think twice before taking this supplement. If you were dead set on taking vitamin E supplements, I would say either A, take it in 100 milligrams, 100 international units or less. Here in America, it's measured in international units. Or you might also maybe opt for what's called a mixed tocopherol supplement. Remember, I said a minute ago that vitamin E, alpha tocopherol, there's actually 8 different types of them. And alpha is just one of them. There's an alpha, a beta, a gamma, a delta. And so there's 8 different types of vitamin E. And sometimes dietary supplements are called mixed tocopherol. And that's a phrase that's used in the supplement world to mean that it contains all of the different vitamin E types. Basically, the thought is, if you take all these different types, you'll get a more broader spectrum effect than if you're just taking a whole lot of only one of those types, like alpha tocopherol. Sometimes supplements contain alpha tocopherol because the thinking is we contain an awful lot of alpha tocopherol vitamin E inside of us, and since that's the most plentiful type, that must be the most important type. Well, that's not necessarily really the truth, and those other vitamin E types probably have some other effects as well. And so, in theory, taking a broader spectrum mixed tocopherol supplement might be better than taking a regular alpha tocopherol vitamin E supplement. But again, the research just isn't there yet to give an idea of whether it would be better or not. I would say that I think vitamin E is probably best obtained from foods like, nuts are a great source of vitamin E. So if you like almonds and walnuts, you're getting some vitamin E. But in terms of the supplements, the vitamin E supplements, I personally just don't see it. People do swear they put it on their skin and it makes it feel better. That's fine. I got no problem with putting it on the skin. But in terms of, say, taking it as an oral dietary supplement, I'm just not too comfortable with that, especially in higher dosages. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. Again, if you are taking vitamin E supplements, I think a great resource for you wherever you are right now, listen to me, is you could walk into a supermarket and talk to a pharmacist. Pharmacists know the research that I'm telling you right now, and they could probably point you to maybe a better supplement, or again, elaborate on some of the research I'm talking about to you right here. But in terms of vitamin E, I kind of think it mostly as a dud in terms of a supplement, at least in terms of some of its rumored effects like cancer, heart disease, anti-aging effects. Again, I remember back in the 1970s, it was rumored to be anti-aging. You don't hear that too much anymore. But, some people may be taking it for that. And I just don't see the research on it. So I'll call it as a dud and a myth, but I'll let you draw your own conclusions. So there you have it. So again, I'm going to try to get through this episode without using the C word, because I know you're probably burned out from hearing it. So I will not try to use that. But what I want to call your attention to is some supplements that have been touted to be a cure or a treatment for this pandemic that we've been all experiencing. And I'm just gonna give you a list of them, knowing I want you to keep in the back of your mind that the list ever grows. Actually, what I'll talk to you about today is something that I just saw pop up on my computer screen this morning before I recorded this, and I'll tell you about it. So without further ado, let's just talk about some of these supplements which have no proof. I'm going to call them fake news supplements. I did another previous episode a few weeks ago on fake news supplements. These are fake news virus cure supplements, if you will. And again, I say they have no evidence, and I'll tell you why as we go through this list. So right off the bat, let's just start with an herb called astragalus. Astragalus finds its way into an awful lot of immune-boosting dietary supplements. And I got to tell you, I don't see any human evidence that it wards off colds and flus or boosts the immune system in people. Yeah, I've seen some various laboratory animal mouse studies and test tube studies on astragalus that it may help the immune system. But we're not mice, we're not test tubes. And again, without proof in humans, it's just hard to say whether it will work or not. So I don't see any really downside to it if you're basically healthy, but I wouldn't look at it as a cure or a vaccine against what we're all going through right now. And again, one actual study I do want to bring to your attention, which again makes me kind of skeptical, if you will, is that when it was given to kids, it didn't reduce their risk of getting colds and flus. So that's something that, again, makes me not think this is probably very powerful immune boosting dietary supplement for this issue or any others. The next dietary supplement I want to bring to your attention, it's not really a dietary supplement, but it is the most popular thing in the world of dietary supplements and natural healing that I've seen in recent memory, and that's cannabidiol or CBD. Cannabidiol is just one of the cannabinoids in hemp and marijuana. It is being touted for everything you can imagine, including in some circles, perhaps even helping the current virus that we're all dealing with. Yeah, no evidence of that. Zero, zip, nada. It just doesn't do it. So anybody that says otherwise, you ask them for human clinical evidence. And if you get human clinical evidence on this or anything else that I'll talk about today, hey, email it to me. I'd love to see it. But in terms of CBD, if you're using it for different things, arthritis, epilepsy, whatever, there may be some evidence for some other things. That's great. But in terms of boosting the immune system or helping people ward off issues that, we're all hearing about right now in the news, I see no proof of that at this point. The next thing that I want to talk about, again, I don't technically consider it a dietary supplement. It's mostly a homeopathic remedy. This is colloidal silver. And colloidal silver is nothing more than silver molecules, if you will, that are essentially suspended in a liquid. And you can get this stuff at various places online. And when the pandemic started getting very big, if you will, around the world, I started seeing references that colloidal silver could ramp up the immune system and prevent this condition from occurring, or even help people who have this condition. Now, I know there are people who swear by colloidal silver. I just don't see any evidence for it. And I did look. And when I wrote a review several weeks ago on colloidal silver, I took a lot of heat from that. People actually called me names. One person, called me, actually a few people actually called me a scammer from the government, which I found very interesting. I don't work for the government. I don't work for anybody. I don't work for pharmaceutical companies. I don't work for dietary supplement companies. So again, that's another reason why I like talking about this, because I am an unbiased source. And when it comes to colloidal silver, I just see no human evidence for it, which is very odd considering this stuff has been around for a long, long time, decades actually. It has been around for many, many years. In fact, some people would say, well, you can even trace it back to like the biblical times. And okay, great. But again, let's take it into the lab. Let's give it to people. Let's see if it works against bacteria. Let's see if it works against viruses. I don't see any human clinical research on this. And again, it's highly touted. I've seen people putting this stuff in toothpaste and saying it'll protect you against colds and flus. Again, show me the evidence. I just don't see it. So I'm going to call colloidal silver another dud, and at least in terms of this. Colloidal silver may also have a side effect, which again, those of you who take silver may know about. If you take too much of it for too long, it can change the color of your skin to like a bluish, grayish color. That seems to be the most common side effect with this. Again, I think it's rare, but I have seen pictures of people who have taken it, and I want you to be aware of that. But, if you're going to be taking this compound, again, hoping it's going to boost your immune system, I know people who swear by it, but I don't see any evidence for it, especially for what we're dealing with right now. So there you have it. Colloidal silver, again, I'm going to call it another fake news dud in my book. One of the more popular things that I have seen floating around social media are essential oils. You've probably seen these things. You can put them, either rub them on your skin, or you can put them in decanters, and they can make your room smell better. Again, I have no issue with essential oils for those purposes, but I can't find any evidence that essential oils are antibacterial or antiviral, or more importantly, and this is the most important thing, reduces the risk of getting sick in people. You give essential oils to people, does it reduce their risk of getting sick? I don't see any research on that. And so for me, that's always going to be the litmus test. And I did look, and I can't find anything with human beings. Again, I don't care about mouse. I don't care about test tubes, because we're not isolated cells in a petri dish or a test tube, and we're certainly not a mouse. And so again, I just don't buy into that. And for the people out there who are probably getting mad at me right now because I said I didn't trust mouse studies. They're fine in the beginning, but they should be followed up with human research. But for the people who say, well, why can't you trust mouse studies? We share a lot of DNA in common with mice. Well, yeah, but we have DNA that's not in common with those mice. And small changes in DNA could mean really big differences in how something reacts. And that's why mouse studies need to be followed up with human clinical research. And it's just not there yet. So again, essential oils. You want to make your room smell better. That's great, and rub it on your skin. I have no problem with any of that stuff. And if it makes you feel better, that's terrific. Now, the next topic I want to turn to is fruits and vegetables. I am a big proponent of eating more fruits and vegetables. I've said it before, I'll say it again. The colors in the foods are antioxidants, many of them. They not only mop up free radicals, they also can help our DNA repair better. There's a tremendous amount of research for these things. And for a number of years, there have been supplements which have been based on fruits and vegetables. They come in either capsules or powders. There's green powders and red powders out there that contain extracts of fruits and vegetables. There is research on some of these products that they may improve immunity, raise blood levels of antioxidants. There's even some research that, at least for some of these things, that they may reduce sick days at work. That's also very intriguing. But again, currently, the stuff we're going through right now, I don't see any evidence for any fruit and vegetable supplement, any powdered supplement of fruits and vegetables warding off this current virus. So if you're taking these products, great. Remember that they're not a substitute for fruits and vegetables. You still got to eat a salad, or as I like to do, throw frozen spinach and lima beans and strawberries in a blender and grind that up maybe with some chocolate protein powder, because I can choke down anything if it's covered in chocolate. So if you want to do that, that's great, and more power to you. I think that's a great thing to do. I even throw green tea and black tea and other types of tea into my smoothies. And again, it may help your immune system stay stronger, and perhaps maybe that'll help you from getting sick. But in terms of having a direct effect on the current virus, no evidence yet. So there you have it. So fruits and veggies, I wouldn't call them, they're definitely not a dud. The supplements are not a dud in my book. I do like them. But again, if you're taking them, fantastic. But again, anybody who says specifically that they'll help prevent this current epidemic, I would say there is no evidence of that as of yet. I saw someone, actually a few people recently talking about and asking me about a hormone called melatonin. Melatonin is a neurotransmitter. It's a hormone, essentially. It's made in our brain, and it's one of the things that helps us go to sleep at night. So one of the reasons why I like blackout shades in my bedroom is it blocks the light, and hopefully that's going to boost my melatonin levels and help me sleep better. And you may have went to the store and saw various over-the-counter natural sleep supplements, and they contain a variety of ingredients like valerian root, or they'll also have usually tryptophan. But the key ingredient in all of these, in my opinion, is melatonin. Melatonin has been shown to help people sleep better, fall asleep a little bit faster, and maybe sleep a little bit longer. And again, most of the research is on people who've been traveling across country or across the world, and they're suffering from jet lag, but it does appear to be a real effect. So melatonin, there's something to it in terms of helping people sleep, but beyond its sleep promoting effects, melatonin also has some anti-inflammatory effects and antioxidant effects. And because of this, it's speculated that melatonin may help the immune system, may even have some anti-aging properties as well. And so that's why sometimes melatonin may be promoted as an anti-aging dietary supplement. But when I hear people talking about how it may help the current virus that we're dealing with, well, then I just have to do a little pushback and say, well, again, show me the proof. I have not seen this dietary supplement / hormone tested in humans to see if it may help prevent or treat the virus. So again, without any clinical studies, I can't say whether it works or doesn't work. Same thing with all this stuff. But again, if you're taking it, great. But effects on the immune system and help with the current virus, I wouldn't bet the farm on it. Let me just say that. Beyond the melatonin, we have another popular supplement, which is popular for a number of reasons, mushrooms. There's a whole lot of different mushroom varieties out there. You can go to health food stores and you can find them in capsules. You can find them in powders. And obviously, you can just go to the supermarket and get mushrooms and eat them. So mushrooms are great. There's a lot of research out there. They might do a lot of different things, helping the immune system, maybe battling viruses, all kinds of stuff, cancer. But the majority of this research is on mice and, again, isolated cells in a petri dish, which, again, is not us. So if you like mushrooms, terrific. Nothing wrong with them if you like them. They're healthy. But if they're going to prevent the current issue that we're dealing with, then I would have to, push back on that and say, I'm not so certain about that, but keep eating them if you like them. I have no problem with them as a food. The next topic that I would talk about is something that somebody literally asked me about this week, and it's a dietary supplement, and it's a form of niacin. It's called nicotinamide riboside. Nicotinamide riboside, it sounds fancy, but it's just a different form of the vitamin niacin. Niacin is also vitamin B3. So it's usually touted to be an anti-aging dietary supplement. You may have seen TV commercials for some of these things popping up for improving energy levels and exercise performance and stuff like that. I've written extensively on the research on nicotinamide riboside and where I think the research needs to go. There is some research showing when you take this, it actually increases levels in your blood, in your cells called NAD. Nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. That's fancy talk for a compound that helps us make energy. And again, that's, I think, one of the ways and one of the reasons why you'll see TV commercials touted as maybe boosting energy levels. I can tell you that I have tried this dietary supplement, tried it for 30 days. I personally did not notice any difference, any improvement in energy levels. I didn't notice any decrease in energy levels either. It didn't improve my exercise or my blood pressure or anything like that. Again, I'm a basically healthy person, which again, may work differently in people who are not so healthy. But in terms of the supplement improving energy levels, stuff like that, I couldn't say. Could be doing some other things I wasn't aware of, and that's a possibility. But in terms of helping the current issue we're dealing with, I don't see any evidence. And I want to bring that up because this supplement is touted to be an anti-aging supplement. And when it comes to the current pandemic we're dealing with, people who are mostly having problems and succumbing to the virus, unfortunately, are older people who have some health problems. They seem to be at the greatest risk. So I did see some write-ups on the internet where some people speculated, well, if we're going to help, combat this virus, we should help people to grow younger. And so we should give them anti-aging supplements. Well, there's no evidence this or any other dietary supplement will reverse the aging process. And I can't say that more strongly. I can say that this particular dietary supplement, nicotinamide riboside, it will raise your NAD levels, yeah. And that's about the only thing I can say it'll do. It's never been proven to reverse the aging process in human beings. We have to take a step back, and if you're reading the internet like I do sometimes, you'll see people throwing these things out, and I would just say, show me the proof. I can't find a dietary supplement that makes people grow younger. Believe me, if it was out there, I would be telling you about it. Heck, I would be taking it. But it just doesn't exist yet. And for the people out there who would speculate, well, if we can get people to grow younger and that'll help ward off this people getting sick from this virus, well, I would say there's a lot more research out there for exercise reversing the aging process and helping people grow younger, if you will, and actually extending the human longevity, the human aging process. There is research showing that people who exercise at least 15 minutes a day, 6 days a week, can live up to 3 years longer. I almost jumped the gun on that one and said 6. It's actually 3 years longer. But that's huge. Think about that. Just taking a walk, and this research is out there. I'm actually going to be talking about this weekend. I'm going to do a Zoom lecture this weekend, and this is one of the studies I'm going to show people. Walking 15 minutes a day, 6 days a week, has been shown to increase the life expectancy, lifespan of people by about 3 years when it was compared to people who didn't exercise at all. I don't see any evidence for that with dietary supplements or even drugs. I remember a few years ago, there was a lung cancer drug that was advertised heavily on television. And they made it seem like this lung cancer drug was the greatest thing in the universe because it has been shown to extend lifespan of people with lung cancer by about 3 months on average. And it was heralded as this great achievement. Now, I get you. If someone is suffering from cancer, 3 months is a long time. I do get that. And I don't want to belittle that. But if we look at people who are exercising, 3 years, that's amazing. And I think that's a message I don't think gets out to people. So if we're looking to, say, reverse the aging process and help people's immune system stay stronger, I can find no greater evidence for anything than some regular physical activity. And again, I'm not talking about doing CrossFit and running marathons. Taking a walk for 15 minutes a day has been shown to work in some individuals. You want to do more than 15 minutes a day? Great, do it. So the more the merrier when it comes to this. But there's far more growing younger evidence for exercise than any dietary supplement. And, sidebar for a moment for the people who do say helping people grow younger is a way to curb susceptibility to the virus. I would simply say that younger people, unfortunately, are still getting sick from this virus. So there really is no better defense against what you already know to be true. And that's isolating yourself if you, as much as you possibly can, washing your hands, not touching your face, and eating well and doing some exercise where you can. Again, the anti-aging supplements out there, I'm not going to buy them for 1 minute as being a defense against this. So I don't buy it, and neither should you. There have been some interesting reports that people who have the virus may have an increased loss of potassium. And this may spark questions as to whether potassium supplements may help slow the course of the disease and help people feel better. Just because they're losing more potassium does not necessarily mean giving people more potassium supplements would make them feel better. Again, I could say that if you want to eat more potassium, I think the answer really is let's eat more of the foods that have potassium, which are not a banana. Yeah, I knew you were probably thinking bananas when I said that. But generally, any fruits and vegetables and beans and seeds are going to have potassium. So bananas are great, by the way. And I wanted to throw that out to you because people, when I say potassium, people invariably think about bananas. A baked potato, a lowly white baked potato is going to have about twice as much potassium as a banana. It's about 490 milligrams for a regular banana versus almost 1,000 milligrams for a regular baked potato. So potassium is great. If you got to take potassium supplements, okay, I get that, but I'd rather put the emphasis on foods. Again, getting back to the fruits and vegetables that we were talking about a second ago, I think there's more evidence for eating better foods and taking a supplement of potassium. So again, just because people are excreting more potassium does not mean that taking potassium supplements will reverse the course of disease, but eating more fruits and veggies, it's hard to go wrong with that. Again, unless you have some issues with certain medications you're taking, I don't see any downsides of eating more potassium-rich fruits and vegetables. Another supplement which has been popular for the last few years, kind of along the same lines as nicotinamide riboside, touted as an anti-aging supplement, is something called PQQ. And I'm not even going to try to pronounce the word because every time I try to, I butcher it. I say it 10 times. I get it right basically once. But in the supplement world, it's just called PQQ. It essentially is a resveratrol-like compound. Resveratrol is a phytonutrient found in grapes and red wine. You've probably heard about the anti-aging benefits of resveratrol. Well, PQQ is sometimes touted to be a better form of resveratrol. And so I see sometimes supplements have taken resveratrol out of their formulations and have put PQQ in its stead. I honestly don't buy it yet, to be honest with you. I think there's far more research for resveratrol than PQQ. So if you like taking that supplement, that's great. Again, like resveratrol, PQQ is touted to help, the mitochondria and the heart and blood pressure and all that stuff. But again, in terms of being antiviral or antibacterial, Let's see what the research eventually says. As of right now, I don't see any antiviral, antibacterial evidence for PQQ supplements, and definitely nothing to reverse or stave off the virus that we're dealing with currently. Something else I wanted to bring to your attention is not necessarily a dietary supplement, because it's not, but it is actually a drug. It's called rapamycin. So rapamycin is very popular in some circles of the anti-aging world. Rapamycin is a drug that is used as a tissue rejection drug sometimes. When people, for instance, get a new organ, they have to get a new kidney or liver or something like that, they're sometimes put on anti-tissue rejection medications, because you get a new organ and your immune system will look at that new organ and say, hey, that's not you, and it'll start to attack it. And it turns out that you have to give these individuals medications for the rest of their lives to prevent the immune system from attacking the new organ. Rapamycin is one of those drugs. So it turns out that at some point, researchers got the idea of giving rapamycin to mice, and it turned out they lived longer. Rapamycin has been shown in mouse studies to extend the lifespans of these mice. And so in some circles, it is actually looked on as an anti-aging medication. I'm not aware of any people taking rapamycin to slow the aging process. There may be some billionaires out there who can get somebody to prescribe it for that, but I personally don't know anybody taking it to slow the aging process. And I honestly don't know, again, if it would slow the human aging process. Again, getting back to my conversation with you about mice versus people, again, there's no evidence that it'll do that. It may not. The same thing is true for, say, metformin, which is another anti-aging drug. If you jump back in the archives, I actually did a whole episode on the anti-aging effects of metformin, the diabetes drug. It's a very popular diabetes drug out there. Again, it may or may not work. Again, I'll leave it to future anti-aging researchers to figure out. But in terms of being antiviral or antibacterial, no evidence at this point. I can't see any evidence. The idea, again, gets back to if you can reverse the aging process, you can make people's immune systems maybe stronger and more able to battle off infections. Well, maybe these things work, maybe these things don't work, but again, it just takes research to know for sure. And I understand how people at this stage of the game would want to just try anything and let's just start throwing spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks. I get that. I'm not aware of any antibacterial or virus effects of either rapamycin or metformin. Again, anti-aging trials as well, I think, still need to be conducted. And I'll point you right back to what I said a few moments ago. There's far more research for taking a walk or riding a bike or just doing some push-ups, working out, exercise, regular exercise. Again, has a tremendous amount of evidence, far more anti-aging effects, and also immune system enhancing effects than these medications do, at least in terms of humans that I've seen. So I just don't see the benefit currently of taking either of these drugs in terms of warding off the current pandemic virus. Vitamin C and vitamin D, very popular perennially in terms of boosting the immune system. Again, in terms of vitamin C, you've probably seen supplements out there that are immune boosting supplements. And I would say that, yeah, if you're going to take, say, vitamin C at the first sign of a cold, sure, there's some research that it may reduce the severity and maybe the length of time that you're having a cold or flu by a little bit. How much? Depends on what study you read, but generally, let's say 20% or so, which I get is significant in some people. Battling the current infection that we're seeing right now, I don't see anything with vitamin C. And again, I would point you to maybe vitamin C foods as opposed to vitamin C supplements. You tend to get different effects when you eat the food versus the supplement. It's a well-known antioxidant, vitamin C is. It does a lot of things in the body. It improves collagen production and helps your eyes and all that stuff. And that's great. In terms of helping people, again, from what we're dealing with right now, it won't hurt for most people, but I'm skeptical until I see the research. And in terms of vitamin D, it's the sunlight vitamin. You probably know that. You go outside and you're going to make vitamin D. ultraviolet radiation from the sun, hits your skin, and basically you turn cholesterol into vitamin D. A lot of us are deficient in vitamin D because we're not going out as much right now if you're social isolated. And again, when we do go out, we're probably wearing a sunscreen, which blocks an awful lot of the vitamin D production. And depending on our age, that may also factor into reduced vitamin D production as well. People who are older, maybe in the 80s or so, they may not make vitamin D so well when they go out into the sun. It is an important vitamin D. One thing I like to say is that every cell of your body, all the trillions of cells in your body have receptors for vitamin D. So we know it does a lot of things. And that your immune system is included in that as well. And so it may have some immune enhancing effects. And again, I think if it is going to work, it may be working best in people who are deficient, which again, maybe more people than we know. So if you're deficient in vitamin D, it's something to think about. If you're not deficient in vitamin D, I'm not so sure it'll boost the immune system or help prevent colds or flus. Again, I'll leave that for your doctor and pharmacist to figure out for you. But again, vitamin D, it's a pretty easy test to measure. Next time you see your doctor after the dust has settled with all this stuff, you can get your vitamin D levels checked and see if you need it or not. If you're going to be taking vitamin D, rule of thumb, when you go look for supplements, number one, you're going to see vitamin D2 and vitamin D3. They're both basically the same thing, so don't worry about which one is best for me. They're equally potent in my book, and as well as other vitamin D researchers, they also say it's the same thing. And if you're going to take it, realize that every 1,000 international units should raise your blood levels by about 10. So for instance, if you did your blood and get a blood test for vitamin D and you came up as, say, 20, which would be deficient, by the way. 30 is what they often say is normal for vitamin D. So say you were 20 and you took 1,000 international units of vitamin D, that should raise you to 30. So every 1,000 will raise blood levels by about 10. So rule of thumb for that. So again, vitamin C, vitamin D, not bad for you, generally speaking. I think they're fine. I'd rather you get them from food if you possibly can, or sunlight. Vitamin D supplements may be necessary for some people, but the antibacterial and virus effects, I think, are maybe overstated in some books. If they work, they probably work for people who are deficient. And then the last supplement I'd mention overall right now would be, say, zinc. I've watched many news articles, whether it be on the internet or TV, and a lot of people are talking about zinc helping the immune system. And I get where they're coming from with this. Zinc has research that it can help boost the immune system. That research is out there. It was actually most of it done in the 1990s, where they basically gave people zinc lozenges, and they found that these zinc lozenges, they actually could reduce the severity and the length of time that people were infected, again, roughly by about 20% or so. So it was a significant effect, but again, I'll leave it to your discretion whether 20% is significant for you or not. But the current thing we're going through, I've not seen zinc tested against the current pandemic we're dealing with. So whether it works or not, I can't say. I would also point out that I am not necessarily convinced most people are deficient in zinc. And that's something else to think about. The RDA for zinc is about 13 milligrams, and most people are probably getting that in the foods they're eating already. So again, seafood, if you're eating, tuna fish and shellfish, you're getting zinc. It's in chicken's a good source, beans, turkey is a good source of zinc, for instance. So you're getting a lot of it in your diet if you're basically eating those foods. But the thing I wanted to mention with zinc, which I don't think has gotten mentioned on the news, is that zinc can be a double-edged sword when it comes to the immune system. So you've heard about how zinc raises the immune system. Yeah, but too much can actually reduce the immune system. So that's where I think we may be running into problems, because you're hearing the message zinc immunity, zinc is good for immune system all the time. But if you're loading up on zinc supplements and you're taking zinc lozenges all the time, you could, in theory, be hurting the immune system, which again, another reason why I think sometimes less is more. If you want to take, a zinc supplement, okay, great. I would do a very low dose zinc supplement. I wouldn't be taking something every day, which is going to have 50 or 80 or 100 milligrams of zinc, because that's far more than the RDA. And I don't really necessarily know what that's doing to the immune system, especially in light of what we're going through. The other reason I would point out, that zinc supplements may not always be the greatest thing out there, is they may reduce our ability to absorb copper. Copper is another essential nutrient as well. And there is also some strange research. I say strange because there's kind of writing on the wall in both directions. But some evidence has noted that high levels of zinc may raise bad cholesterol levels, LDL levels. Not all the studies say it does this. And so that's why I'm a little conflicted when I bring this to your attention. But if you have some LDL, bad cholesterol problem, maybe your bad cholesterol is too high, again, talk to your doctor pharmacist if you think zinc supplements are right for you and say, hey, what do you think? I've heard that zinc may raise bad cholesterol levels. Pharmacists and doctors, they are aware of this research. So again, throw it out to them and see what they say. But in terms of the current craziness we're going through in terms of zinc, if you get it from food, great. But I've seen no evidence that any of these supplements can prevent colds and flus and stuff like that. Since we're on the topic of supplements, I did want to throw out to you that immune boosting supplements may not always be the greatest thing. All we hear about on TV and on the internet is boosting the immune system. I think that's a problem for people who have autoimmune disorders. Autoimmune disorders are those which the immune system is already overly aggressive. And the people who come to mind when I think about autoimmune disorders would be type 1 diabetics and people with rheumatoid arthritis. Their immune systems are already hypervigilant. And so would an immune boosting supplement be good for them? Hey, how about people who have gotten new organs and they have to have their immune system suppressed by those medications, kind of like rhabdomyolysis or probably some better ones out there? Would an immune system supplement be good for them? It's something I think we should be talking about. It's easy for people to jump on the internet and just say, oh, take this immune boosting supplement. Well, you don't want to have an immune system that's too hyperactive because it could start, running around looking for a fight when it doesn't need to be fighting anything. So that's why I'm always going to come back to the food. I think the food is going to be a better source for this. The food, the exercise, the getting rest, I think that's a better thing than a lot of the other stuff you're going to see. Now, along the same lines of dietary supplements, which we've been talking about, one thing that I do want to bring to your attention, because I just have this feeling, my spidey sense has been tingling for the past week. I think you're going to be hearing about this, so let me call attention to it. It's called quercetin. So quercetin is a compound which you may have heard of. It's called a polyphenol flavonoid. It's a flavonoid compound. You've probably heard about it. It's found in a whole bunch of foods: apples, grapes, red wine. It's in broccoli. It's in berries, blueberries, raspberries. It's in onions. And again, it's a phytonutrient that has been touted for a long time to have anti-aging effects and general health benefits. Well, it turns out that there is some investigation going on right now to see if maybe quercetin may have an effect on this current virus. And the research is, as I've been able to figure out, being conducted right now in China. The Canadians and the Chinese, and maybe the Americans as well, are looking at this. What I've seen is there's a Canadian researcher, and he's working with some researchers in China to test it. The reason why this is going on is that it turns out that quercetin appears to have some antiviral effects. Previous research has noted that when you give it to mice, for instance, and expose isolated cells to quercetin, that it appears to inhibit replication of influenza A, the polio virus, that's amazing, hepatitis, and maybe even the HIV virus. What the heck? I want to stress that the research on these areas is not on people. It is on mice and isolated cells, but it does appear to have these broad spectrum antiviral effects. So what I can say is the research on quercetin and the current virus, that research has not yet been published, and neither I or anybody else can tell you if it works against the current pandemic or not. I could not tell you whether or not what dosage would be effective. And I also can't tell you whether quercetin or an extract of quercetin is being studied. And that's something to keep in the back of your mind, because you're going to start hearing quercetin, quercetin, quercetin. Is it the actual quercetin itself, or is it some metabolite or extract from this compound? I don't know. And I looked, and I want to say that I think it's quercetin, but I don't want to put all my money on that just yet. And even if it is quercetin, how much? How much are they using? Are they using, 200 milligrams, 500 milligrams, 1,000 milligrams? I can't tell you. And neither can anybody right now. So when you hear about this, and I think you might, just again, before you run out and start running to the store to get this stuff or ordering it online, it's not a bad supplement. It has been around for a long time. It doesn't appear to have any bad side effects that I can see for the most part. The side effects are pretty nominal. Sometimes, people report, getting some GI effects, a little nauseous here and there, a little bit of headaches, but nothing. I don't see any issues. Again, medications, or maybe some medication issues if you take any medications. Again, that's a conversation for your pharmacist and doctor. But for generally healthy people, quercetin is pretty safe overall, and it's been around a long time. But whether or not it works against this current pandemic, I can't say, but I wanted to call it to your attention because I was quite intrigued with what I was seeing and hearing about this. The broad spectrum effect, again, HIV, polio virus, hepatitis, the SARS virus. The SARS virus was very popular a couple years ago. And again, why they're testing it is the coronavirus is a form of the SARS virus and the coronavirus. They have some things in common, which is why they're kind of looking at this. But I think it's too soon to tell right now. I'm not going to call it a vaccine. I'm not going to call it a cure. I'm going to say it's a well-known supplement, been out a lot of years, basically safe for most people to take, especially if you're essentially healthy. But I would not jump on this bandwagon yet. Again, I just want to get out ahead of the curve a little bit on this in case you hear about this. There may be something, it may not be something. What I will do say is when I become aware of the results of this research, and I hope this research will be out in a month or two, because the last time I heard about it, it was approximately about a month ago when the research supposedly should have been started. So we should have some updates, hopefully in the near future. I would simply say stay tuned. So if you want to drop me an email or check my Supplement Clarity website, I'll be updating people there. Or if you follow me on social media, I'm Joe Cannon MS on Instagram and also on Facebook, or Supplement Clarity on Facebook. And I talk a lot about supplements there. But email me if you want to know, or just follow me and or check the websites, and I'll keep you posted on this. It's something that's intriguing, but I'm not totally convinced yet, and I would not be surprised if it doesn't work. So just to let you know about that. So there you have it. There's my list of fake news supplements and maybe overhyped supplements. I don't know if fake news is always the best word for this, but overhyped preliminary supplements, which either have very early research or zero research behind them. There probably are going to be more out there. So the thing I would say to you is when you're looking at these videos and these YouTube posts and these Facebook and Instagram posts by people who say, oh, a doctor said this or a researcher said that, show me the human research. I don't want to hear somebody with a bunch of letters behind their name who just saying stuff. Because I don't know that person. I don't even know that person really the person they're saying they are, for instance. Again, social media is weird sometimes. And, there are people trying to capitalize on a bad thing. And I see that out there too, and it's very shameful. And so I want you to always ask good questions. Where is the research? Who's the research on? A mice, a cell, a petri dish, a human? Always look for the human research. And again, if I could get that human research of that product compared to a placebo, I think that would be even better. Looking at some of the updates that we're seeing now on television with the president and his medical task force, I'm amazed at how often the researchers have to explain medical research to the reporters. And over and over and over again, I hear the same thing. We have to look at controlled studies. What they're basically saying is we got to look at the treatment and compare it to no treatment or a placebo. And I'm amazed that, and again, reporters are smart, but they're repeating that over and over again. And I sometimes find myself scratching my head and I'm saying, do they not know that? Maybe they don't. I don't know. I mean, my background is different than the reporters. My background is in medical research. That's my degrees. I mean, I've spent a whole lot of time in the lab when I was in school. So I know how research is conducted. I know the basics of placebo-controlled randomized clinical trials. And I think that's what we should be looking for. That's the best research. That's the gold standard of research. And so I would ask you to when you're faced with these types of claims for any medication or supplement, where is the research, and are there any real clinical human research on that thing? I think that's going to serve you best as you surf the highways and byways of a lot of murkiness these days. There's a lot of murkiness out there in terms of what people are saying, and that comes obviously even from sometimes credible sources. We shouldn't wear masks, and now they're talking about masks and all that stuff. And again, it's a very fluid conversation we're having because we've never faced anything like this before. And so even very scholarly, intelligent people are scrambling to find answers. And I understand that in this world of we want our answers now and we want it as quickly as possible, sometimes we're not going to get it quickly as possible because research takes time. And I understand that, you want to sometimes just try anything, and sometimes trying everything will, work sometimes. And maybe that is what some researchers are doing, but, try anything will be followed up with, let's do a clinical trial. But you're hearing a lot of conversations from a lot of different people. I want you to try to stay calm through this craziness. And again, before you try anything, ask where the research is coming from. I do think that's going to serve you best, in the weeks and months ahead. Now, that's kind of all I got for you this week. I know it's a little bit of a different podcast episode than I've done previously, where I wanted to talk about some stuff that's out there, but I also want to have a conversation with you because there is so much to take in right now, and sometimes you just don't know where to turn for the right answers, and sometimes nobody has the right answers, and that's something else I think is much more scary and confusing for people. But again, at the end of the day, I do think the best answer is what you already know to be true. Self-isolation where possible, washing your hands, disinfecting, not touching your face as much. I think that's the best answer. And realizing that we are going to get through this. I know we are. I'm even starting to see some statistics now that things are starting to get better, and that's a good thing. So, by the same token, I'm also hearing that some people are not taking this seriously. There's always going to be stupid people out there who are going to think this is a big hoax. And, it's not a big hoax. It did ramp up a lot quicker than a lot of people thought. I actually didn't think it was going to ramp up as much as it is myself because, quite frankly, we've never faced anything like this in our entire lifetime. In fact, in the lifetime of the human race, we've never faced anything like that before. And I say that not to frighten anybody, but to realize that this is a different time, and this is our battle. This is definitely our fight. This is the fight of our generation. And with that, I really want to close because I want to close with of a different quote of the week, but it is something that I think is appropriate for this week because, a lot of people are pushing back against, the rules that we're hearing. And I think a lot of times, again, people are saying, oh, this can't be true. Unfortunately, it is true. And there is something we can do about it. And this is actually something that I saw on social media, and I have no idea who originally said it. So I got nobody to give somebody credit to, but it kind of goes like this. This is the first time in human history that we've been able to save the world by sitting on our butt and watching TV. And it kind of is true. So you kind of are saving the world by staying home and, not exposing anybody to, the virus if you do have it, or even if you don't have it. So again, it's something to keep in the back of your mind. You have the ability to save the world right from where you are right now. Until next week, same bad time, same bad channel. I'm Joe Cannon. Stay home, be safe, and try to make a difference.